Tonight, tragedy in Tasmania. 4 school children killed, 4 critically injured as a jumping castle is blown metres into the air at an end-of-year celebration. Plus, COVID chaos hits the Australian Test team. Pat Cummins forced out by South Australia's rules. A COVID promise for Victoria as the state races to deliver booster shots. 6 injured as a 93-year-old driver ploughs into Christmas shoppers. And the class of 2021 shines, despite 2 years of pandemic chaos in schools.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. 4 children have been killed and 4 others are fighting for life after a jumping castle tragedy in Tasmania. They were celebrating the end of the school year when a powerful gust of wind sent the inflatable flying 10 metres into the air.
Shaken police officers overcome with grief after a planned day of fun turns to unthinkable schoolyard horror.
There was just children everywhere, children trying to get resuscitated and...
The chaos unfolded at Devonport's Hillcrest Primary when a freak wind gust ripped a jumping castle from the ground.
Devastating. I was panicking, I was, that stressed out. And then I saw part of the jumping castle flying up in the air, and the next minute these air balls were going in the air as well.
Witnesses say the inflatable ride was flung 10 metres high before terrified grade 6 students fell. 4 children were killed, 2 boys and 2 girls. 4 others were critically injured.
On a day when these children were meant to be celebrating their last day of primary school, instead we're all mourning their loss.
Young children on a fun day out together with their families, and it turns to such horrific tragedy at this time of year.
Teachers and young classmates saw the tragedy unfold. Frantic parents rushed to the scene, reportedly forced to wait hours outside the school gates with little information. Locals say the morning weather was calm before the strong gust came out of nowhere.
It's a pretty tight-knit school and tight-knit community down here, and it's not going to be the same.
Again?
Yeah, never again.
WorkSafe Tasmania has launched an urgent investigation into the freak tragedy, a grief-stricken community reeling the week before Christmas.
There is no doubt that this has been a very confronting and distressing scene.
I know that this is a strong and caring community that will stand together and support one another.
And senior reporter Nick McCallum is in Devonport tonight. Nick, this tragedy is being felt across the country.
Mike, it's believed the 4 children killed were all in Year 6. This was their final day of primary school. There's already been a steady stream of local families laying flowers and teddy bears at the school gate in tribute. A GoFundMe page has also been set up by 4 affected families. There will be multiple investigations into this accident. Counselling has been offered for children, teachers and parents at the school, and for first responders. As you saw, they too were deeply affected as an entire community, Mike, starts grieving now.
Nick McCallum live in Devonport. Thank you. Cricket has been rocked by a COVID scare, forcing new captain Pat Cummins out of the second Ashes test. Cummins was declared a close contact after dining near a confirmed case and will isolate for at least 7 days.
The Ashes in COVID chaos. Pat Cummins forced into isolation. Steve Smith back as Australian captain.
Pretty interesting morning. A bit been going on, but feel for Paddy.
Last night, Cummins went out for dinner. At the next table, another patron got news they'd tested positive to COVID. Despite leaving immediately, Cummins was declared a close contact.
Pat did nothing wrong. He was working within the parameters of our biosecurity arrangement.
He's since tested negative. If the match was being played in Melbourne or Sydney, Cummins would be free to play.
I actually thought he was joking. I thought there's no way that this can happen on the morning of the second test.
Under South Australia's COVID rules, vaccinated close contacts must quarantine for 1 week. The Aussie captain now stuck inside the team hotel.
There's a few bottles of champagne being opened quite early this morning, but...
Cummins tweeted he's gutted. Super frustrating, but COVID has thrown us all some curveballs over the last couple of years. We'll be cheering along. Nathan Lyon and Mitch Stark dined at the same restaurant but sat outdoors. Deemed casual contacts, both free to play.
Protocols are in place for Adelaide, were prescribed by our Chief Medical Officer. They were appropriate, they balanced well-being with risk, and unfortunately, it's just such bad luck.
Steve Smith's back in charge almost 3 years after being sacked for Sandpapergate.
I'll try and lead on the way he started last week, and hopefully we can have a really good week.
The COVID shock gifted pace bowler Michael Neser his test debut.
Great moment this morning.
Cummins will need another test on day 6. If that's negative, he's free.
There's more than 7 days till Boxing Day, so yeah, absolutely. Once Pat's completed his isolation, he'll be fit and ready to go for Boxing Day.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Victorians have been promised they won't be forced to spend Christmas in isolation if they're exposed to Omicron at the shops. The acting Premier says quarantining pub patrons was a special case and there are no plans to tighten COVID rules.
A night out plunged 800 people into isolation, inducing anxiety of a Christmas in quarantine if Victorians come into contact with Omicron. But there's reassurance from the government.
In terms of our isolation settings, there's no change to our settings.
Promising exposure to an infected shopper won't automatically leave people locked up alone.
A Bunnings, a supermarket, it's very different to a nightclub setting. It's a prudent approach, a specific risk approach to these two sites.
Daniel Theophanu caught the virus partying at the Peel and Circuit bars on Friday night. He's one of 7 positive cases linked to the nightclubs.
Yesterday was like hot death. It was awful. And today I'm on the mend.
He immediately told close contacts to test and isolate, listing all the venues he attended. But he's yet to hear if he's contracted Omicron.
I was a bit surprised in the slow response of the Department of Health.
Victoria's local COVID cases have soared above 1,600 with another 9 deaths. Hospitalisations increasing to 384. Still, restrictions eased once again overnight, meaning retailers can get back to selling instead of security. No longer required to check vaccine passports at the door. But the mask mandate for shoppers remains.
If we are double vaxxed, there's got to be an advantage in being double vaccinated. But a relaxation of policy like New South Wales, if New South Wales can manage it, why can't we?
New South Wales might have scrapped mask rules, but it's reclaimed the lead over Victoria in daily infections, more than 1,700 reported today. As Omicron takes hold, cases have quadrupled in a week and lengthy queues swarm testing stations across Sydney.
Once we start seeing the Omicron rates get up, which I believe will happen in January sometime, then we all need to act to dampen the transmission.
My simple message to Australians is to go about your lives, enjoy the summer, exercise the common sense precautions that you would. If you're feeling uncertain, then it's not compulsory to go out.
Jade Vincent has an update now. And Jade, there are new Omicron cases tonight.
Mike, another 3 confirmed cases of the new variant. They're in hotel quarantine, but that's a total of 13 Omicron cases across the state. And while the rules relaxed again today, the Health Department is now urging Victorians to take extra care when celebrating Christmas with relatives who are elderly or immunocompromised. The advice is leave masks on inside if you can't socially distance or meet up outdoors or in a well-ventilated space. Mike?
Jade, thank you. Victoria's vaccine hub network could be expanded to speed up booster shots before Christmas. GPs are struggling to keep up with demand because they've been caught off guard by the accelerated timeline for third jabs.
Many Melburnians have added a booster shot to their festive wish list.
I suppose it's good protection for Christmas, isn't it? Feeling a bit more confident being around people over Christmas.
While some major hubs have shut down, demand for third jabs means walk-up clinics like this one in Footscray are being scaled up.
We're going into libraries, we're going at train stations, we're at football ovals, we're in basketball courts.
we're in high rises.
And we're doing everything we can through our 58 state sites and looking at what we can do to expand through to Christmas.
This week the booster gap was cut from 6 months to 5, but some health experts want to go further.
I would suggest we follow the UK recommendations, which is 3 months.
Shortening the booster interval made millions more Australians eligible overnight. GPs say if it was shortened any further, they wouldn't be able to cope with demand over the holiday period. Clinics that were throwing out unused supply a week ago now can't get enough.
If we'd been given a week or two's notice, if we'd had a chance to order the vaccine, we could be vaccinating hundreds, thousands of people this week.
At the same time, of course, Christmas and the festive season means that people are taking leave and that sort of thing. So there's a workforce issue there too.
While Omicron appears to be less severe because it's more transmissible, it could lead to a surge in hospital admissions.
The Omicron variant is able to escape even 2 doses of our current vaccines, at least partially. And that's a really significant problem.
And Mike, for those wanting to get a booster jab this weekend, the government has just announced it's going to keep the Royal Exhibition Building and the Wyndham Drive-Through Hub open. About 500,000 Victorians now overdue for their 3rd dose. Those who are due for a jab between Christmas and New Year are advised to get in touch with their local pharmacy. The state-run clinics will close over Christmas and then reopen January 4.
Emma O'Sullivan, thank you. At least 6 people were injured when a car smashed through a busy shopping centre in Northcote. Stunned witnesses told 7 News they thought it was a terror attack, but it turned out to be a 93-year-old driver who lost control of his vehicle.
9 days before Christmas, shoppers are sent into a panic. A car ploughed into the crowded Northcote Plaza shopping centre just before 11 a.m. It was captured on security footage clipping a brick wall before it smashed into the Suzanne Gray store, continuing through the other side for 40 metres. Bystanders thought they were under attack.
Everyone thought it's the tourists, but that wasn't because everyone panicked and running, the people closing their shop. And then I saw people running, so I grabbed the ceramic pot and started going the opposite way. I said, if it's a terrorist attack, I just wanted to stop them.
Police confirming they're treating it as an accident after a 93-year-old driver simply lost control. At least 6 shoppers were hit, 4 of them taken to hospital. 1 is in a serious condition.
One lady come. I asked her, please call ambulance. When I take the phone, I can't take, I'm so scared.
Santa had been preparing for a photo opportunity near the Christmas tree. An hour later, and a queue of children would have been standing in the car's path.
Was a horrible feeling.
Kate Jones, 7 News.
A tram's come off its tracks on Collins Street. It collided with a car just after 4 o'clock this afternoon. 1 man was hurt. Paramedics have taken him to hospital for treatment. Collins Street remains blocked between Queen and William Streets. All tram routes have been diverted. A Melbourne man could be back on the streets in 4 years after he was jailed for raping an intoxicated woman he'd offered to drive home. Harley Palace claimed it was consensual, but witnesses say the victim was unconscious and desperately in need of help when she was picked up.
Harley Jaffa Palace found an intoxicated woman passed out in the city and offered her a lift home.
She appeared to be unconscious, or at best semi-conscious. One witness, N.A., had remarked in his police statement that when he first saw C, he thought she looked dead.
He and mate Jared Vincent Thomas then pulled over and raped her repeatedly in the back of a ute. Today, Palace was sentenced to 10 years jail with a non-parole period of 6.5. The judge said it was an opportunistic attack on a woman who was alone, extremely vulnerable and powerless.
She just wanted to be taken home. She needed to be taken home. You and Mr. Thomas offered to do just that, but then you took advantage of her vulnerability within minutes.
The victim's fiancé realised something was wrong when she was dropped home incoherent and missing her engagement ring. She's since been experiencing nightmares, depression, anxiety and exhaustion as a result of the men's actions.
The impact of your crimes upon your victim was severe and are ongoing.
Pallas got out of prison just 4 months before he raped the woman. He'd been jailed for kidnapping and using a carriage service to menace and threaten the mother of his child. The judge said this prior conviction raised concerns about his prospect of rehabilitation. Given time already served, Pallas could be back on the streets in less than 4 years. Christy Cooper, 7 News.
There's been another big drop in Australia's unemployment rate as parts of the country emerge from lockdown. And even more jobs are on the horizon thanks to big spending election promises.
Now I've got to be a bit careful here.
Campaigning COVID style on the New South Wales Central Coast.
But if you stay back more than 1.5 metres...
Identified again as a close contact.
I'm not allowed to shake hands.
Working, he hopes, on another election victory.
No shortage of miracles.
On the day of a miracle result on jobs, the unemployment rate tumbling to 4.6% with 366,000 jobs created in November. A new monthly record as New South Wales and Victoria emerged from lockdown. A good start to Treasurer Josh Frydenberg's newest promise.
The creation of around 1 million new jobs.
Releasing the mid-year budget update, predicting the unemployment rate to fall as low as 4.25%. The conversion already of hundreds of thousands from welfare to work, lifting tax income by $95 billion. But Delta costing an extra $25 billion and the NDIS $26. The deficit cut to $99.2 billion this year, falling to $57.5 in 24-25. And debt at $673 billion climbing to $915 billion.
And Australians can look to next year with hope, optimism and confidence.
Good news on the economy isn't giving us good news on the budget.
Squirreled away in these numbers, $16 billion of taxpayers' money, most of it an election war chest to buy votes, some of it to buy vaccines, but just how much, the government refuses to say.
Including those that are commercial in confidence and therefore can't be revealed.
More of the same rorts, more of the same waste, more of the same missed opportunities.
More of what governments do before elections. Mark Riley, 7 News.
The VCE results are in and the class of 2021 is celebrating after 2 years of pandemic turmoil in our schools. There were 39 perfect scores, but experts say young people shouldn't be defined by the ATAR.
They were forced to complete their toughest years of schooling in a pandemic, but the class of 2021 came out smiling.
Oh my goodness. I'm pleased with the result, especially after a very tricky year. I'm just really happy that it's all over now.
More than 50,000 Year 12s graduated with their VCE, with more than 14,000 students receiving at least one study score of 40 or more. It was a proud day for Cade Dorber, the St Helena Secondary College student undergoing more than 40 operations in his schooling life.
Very relieved and, just overcome with emotions.
Vietnamese migrant Vai Vu also defied the odds. After arriving in Melbourne, she picked up English quickly, today surprising her parents with a score of 99.90.
So proud of her. She's been working hard.
I didn't expect that. I initially struggled with understanding people because, of course, there were lots of words that I couldn't understand.
While high achievers are celebrating, other students have been left feeling disappointed about their score. But experts say the ATAR isn't the be-all and end-all.
Your score doesn't define who you are. Most people don't get the perfect score and they go on to be really successful.
Among the tips for moving forward, changing your preferences, studying a related course and seeing a careers counsellor.
Nothing's going to stop you getting where you want to. It might just take you a little longer than you expected.
Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Well done to all. It was a nervous start for the Aussies in the second test. Blake Johnson, it's been a stunning day.
Mike, England's pace attack has let off some steam. Marcus Harris gone cheaply following an incredible catch, and it was left to David Warner and Marnus Labuschagne, who copped a nasty blow. All the highlights are coming up in sport. Also, the latest from the Magpies AGM set to decide on their new president and an almost unbelievable buzzer beater in the NBA. You'll see why it's history-making.
Can't wait. Thanks, Blake. See you soon. A ute joyride has turned to tragedy on the outskirts of Melbourne. Details next on 7 News. Plus, families finally get to have their say on the St Basil's disaster. JFK's daughter gets a new job in Australia. How a toddler ran up a $1,200 ice cream bill on his dad's credit card. And later, the simple pill promising to provide all the health benefits of a hectic workout. Families who lost elderly relatives during the COVID outbreak at St Basil's have told the coroner of their grief. On the final day of the inquest, Judge John Kane heard victim impact statements. He's investigating the deaths of 50 residents. One relative said he'd wished he'd broken into the home to rescue his parents. The coroner is yet to rule on whether he'll compel 2 senior managers to give evidence. A young electrician has been killed in a late-night joyride on a back road near Warragul. He was one of 5 mates riding in and on the back of a ute when the driver lost control.
Emotional hugs at home after being questioned by police. 20-year-old Lily Taylor returns from a horror night which left a friend dead. Just weeks after his 21st birthday, Bailey Quaife died in hospital after falling from a ute being driven by Miss Taylor on a dirt road at Darnham near Warragul.
Pure shock to start with. It's a disbelief and just pure shock.
It just appears to be, I guess in some ways, a misadventure gone wrong.
It's believed a group of 5 had been at a pub, Miss Taylor among them. She later drove them home, 2 in the cabin, 2 in the tray at the back and 1 clinging to the bonnet or bull bar. Electrician Bailey Quaife from Druin, thought to be standing in the tray, tumbled out. A fatal fall for the local footy player.
Yeah, he was loved by everyone. I can't speak highly enough of him, just a great kid, and then to have something like this happen, just tragedy for his family. I can only imagine how they must be feeling today.
The ute stopped. Someone called 000. An ambulance arrived first. That's when the 4 uninjured friends drove off before police arrived, leaving paramedics to care for their mate. Instead, they drove to a house a couple of minutes away, but police soon came knocking.
Obviously panic has set in. There's potential, I think it appears, that alcohol may well have been a factor.
Miss Taylor was arrested. The 20-year-old later released without charge, but it's believed she hadn't been drinking. The ute seized for forensic examination.
It's horrible, in all honesty. I think been 2 weeks out from Christmas.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Melbourne's record-setting lockdowns have helped lower the crime rate. There was a 10% decrease in total criminal offences across Victoria for the 12 months to the end of September. Burglaries and robberies are down to their lowest levels in 10 years. Theft decreased by more than 14%, with around 3,000 fewer cars stolen and 9,000 fewer broken into. But breaches of family violence orders rose by almost 8%. Toddlers have come close to being caught in the crossfire when bullets were fired in a gang dispute ended up inside a daycare centre. The children ran to their carers' arms as 2 shots pierced a wall. The targets were 4 men with links to a crime gang.
They were set upon by 2 individuals wearing high-vis shirts, one armed with an assault rifle, the other one armed with a handgun.
The gunmen are still on the run. Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of the late former President John F. Kennedy, has been tapped to be the next US ambassador to Australia. Joe Biden's nomination will now go before a Senate committee. Ms. Kennedy says she looks forward to strengthening the alliance between our 2 nations if confirmed to the posting. She previously served as ambassador to Japan. A preschooler has racked up an astonishing ice cream bill on his father's food delivery account. But instead of getting into trouble, the boy's been rewarded for the order, which was dished out to his dad's deserving colleagues.
A small boy who gave his parents a very big, sweet surprise. Chris King tried to occupy son Christian with a children's show on his mobile phone when the 4-year-old decided to seize his moment and shop up a storm on Uber Eats.
I had a look at the total and we were 1,200 deep.
10 litres of Messina gelato, 9 litres of milk, 20 jars of chocolate spread, even several ice cream cakes.
And he even personalised the cakes with happy birthday.
Chris discovering Christian's sugary spend up when a delivery driver called. He'd arrived at his workplace, a local fire station, to drop off the delicious haul.
Both fridges were full, so there was heaps.
I think when I first found out, I had steam coming through my ears.
Incidents like this are extremely rare. When they do happen from time to time, we have a specialist team that deals with them.
The disastrous delivery quickly became a delight for the firefighters here at Newtown Station, who, alongside the King's family and friends, got to enjoy a share of Christian's ice cream splurge.
We sort of decided that we're all prepared for anything, even to eat ice cream.
The 4-year-old has now been honoured for his sneaky spending, with Messina's newest Jersey cow named in his honour. But needless to say, Christian isn't allowed to use his parents' phones anytime soon. Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Keep away from that phone, Christian. Sonia Marinelli joins us now with a look at the weather. And Sonia, what can we hope for on Christmas Day?
Oh, well, Mike, on any given Christmas, there's a 70% chance it stays dry. Well, the average maximum is a perfect 25 degrees. Having said that, the hottest one was 40.7, the coldest just 14.5. But the lead up this year is looking promising. We'll be under the influence of high pressure. That'll deliver a run of both dry and sunny days, with temperatures close to or just above the December average. We'll get our first official look at Christmas Eve tomorrow, but for now, Mike, I'll see you after sport.
Can't wait for that. Thanks, Sonia. See you soon. Qantas has just unveiled big plans with new planes, new routes and new holiday destinations. Details next on 7 News. Plus a showdown over trees planted in tribute to fallen soldiers. Australia's Princess Mary struck down with a royal dose of COVID. And how tunnel workers dug deep to save a mate. Angry Mont Albert locals have watched as contractors cut down trees they say are part of an avenue of honour. 5 out of 9 trees will be replaced by a concrete pad during level crossing removal works.
4 boys from one family laid down their lives, again with another 5 soldiers, and this is the way the Labor government treat those boys.
The Level Crossing Authority says there's no proof the trees are a war memorial, but it's doing its best to minimise losses. Qantas has revealed the COVID travel downturn has cost them over $1 billion since July. But the airline insists it's bouncing back, ordering new planes as it celebrates Australia's new travel bubbles.
3, 2, 1.
Virgin back flying overseas since COVID for the very first time.
Oh my God, it is just absolutely amazing.
Sydney to Fiji.
It still seems surreal, you know, still unbelievable.
Passengers celebrated with coconuts.
I'm really excited.
It's a huge milestone for us, it's a massive milestone for our guests.
As airlines try to shake off a horror start to the financial year.
This has been one of the toughest periods in the pandemic.
Qantas expecting a $1.1 billion loss for the first half. A period that saw flights slashed to less than 30% of pre-COVID levels, but it expects a lift to 117% by the end of the financial year. Omicron this month briefly slowed local and paused international bookings, but the Qantas chief says he has
a continued confidence from the premiers that borders will open and stay open.
An $800 million sale of Qantas land in Sydney helped limit the financial damage, so much so Qantas is pushing ahead next year with replacing its fleet, announcing a new deal for new Airbus aircraft. The Qantas boss buoyant about airline travel, but it's heavily dependent on Australian domestic flights, which today hit more COVID turbulence. A day after opening up its borders, Tasmania declared a number of New South Wales areas, including most of Sydney, high risk. Travellers from those spots need negative COVID test results.
You always have to be on edge when it comes to COVID. It's thrown us curveballs.
It's not going to stop him flying to the UK to see his mother for the first time in 2 years. Chris Marr, 7 News.
A French taxi company has suspended its fleet of Model 3 Teslas after an off-duty driver lost control, killing one person and injuring 20. The driver is now under investigation for suspected manslaughter. Tesla says there's no indication a technical fault is to blame. Australian-born Crown Princess Mary of Denmark has tested positive to COVID as the Omicron variant tears through Europe. The UK has also recorded its highest number of daily cases since the pandemic began.
A scene that's become increasingly rare, the Queen hosting the Sultan and First Lady of Oman in person at Windsor Castle. Her Majesty still on light duties but preparing for a traditional Christmas. The widowed monarch said to be determined not to be alone.
The senior royals are really committed to making sure that they are there for the Queen over Christmas, and fingers crossed that all goes to plan.
Camilla returned to a royal tradition, a sword-wielding royal equerry and 6 kids helping her decorate the Clarence House Christmas tree. The event cancelled last year, but royal engagements are continuing for now, as another royal household is rocked by a COVID infection. Hobart-born Crown Princess Mary has tested positive for COVID in Denmark. She's isolating at Amalienborg Palace. Eldest son Christian had COVID last year. In Britain, Omicron is taking hold, a record 78,610 COVID cases in the last 24 hours. UK health bosses expect case numbers to only rise here and reach what they describe as staggering levels in coming days. But any effort to ratchet up restrictions will be met with resistance. Boris Johnson is expected to face a backbench revolt if he tightens rules any further, instead backing booster jabs.
We're not cancelling events, we're not closing hospitality, we're not cancelling people's parties or their ability to mix.
But most do expect a curtailed Christmas. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
A tradie who suffered a cardiac arrest while working on the Metro tunnel has been reunited with quick-thinking colleagues and paramedics who saved his life. Father of 3, Dean Barber, fell unconscious almost 4 stories underground. 2 workers who'd never met the 52-year-old ran towards him, giving CPR and using a defibrillator.
The difference that was made for Dean was made by his workmates.
I can't thank these guys enough.
Using a defibrillator increases the chance of someone surviving a cardiac arrest by 70%. Water torture is unfolding in the Dandenong Ranges. Up next, the Alinda family's cut off from crucial water supply for 5 months. Plus, the simple pill promising to provide all the health benefits of a hectic workout. And graduation day for Victoria's guide dogs. A Mickleham man is in hospital tonight after a vicious attack in Melbourne's west. The 34-year-old was found outside a home in Melton South with serious upper body injuries. Police believe he was hurt somewhere else by a group of thugs and then dumped outside the property. Residents living next to one of Melbourne's biggest dams still can't access drinking water 5 months after devastating storms destroyed their pipes. They're in a bitter fight with authorities over who should foot the $1 million damage bill.
They live just metres from one of Melbourne's biggest catchments, but these residents are cut off indefinitely.
There's been no fresh water for 6 months.
A damaging storm hit the area in June, tearing out pipes connecting households to the Sylvan Dam.
We're in a first world country, supposedly, and here we are without water.
The pipes will cost $250,000 to fix or over $1 million to replace. And residents have been told they have got to find the money.
We provide water through our water mains, and these are actually private pipes.
The water that we drink, it's actually brown, and so we're drinking rusty water anyway, so they really need full replacement.
After months of negotiating, local authorities maintain it's not their responsibility, but have been helping out anyway.
We've been ensuring that they've had access to water through rainwater tanks and topping up those tanks at our expense.
Local businesses have been relying on water from their dams and now fear if they don't get enough rain in the next few weeks, their companies may not survive.
We pay rates like everybody else. We pay water fees like everybody else.
Locals are now turning up the pressure on the state government for more disaster recovery funding.
There's some immediate repairs that can be made by the authority as they work through what's the long-term solution.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Melbourne scientists are working on developing a new drug which could have the same effect as a strict diet and exercise regime. It's hoped the breakthrough will drastically improve life for people with diabetes and even help slow the ageing process.
78-year-old Bob Fairclough was diagnosed with diabetes more than 20 years ago.
It was a bit of a shock to me.
He was told to manage his condition by adjusting his diet and staying active, but as he gets older, fitting exercise into his routine has become more challenging.
It's hard to motivate yourself. I was religiously doing it almost every day, but now it's about every second day.
Scientists from Monash University are now working on developing a new drug to help manage the condition after they found an enzyme that can trigger a reaction in the body, mimicking the effects of exercise without doing any of the work.
We hope that we may be able to delay the development of frailty and the decline in muscle function as we age, as well as preventing type 2 diabetes.
All right, change legs.
A breakthrough that can't come soon enough. Worldwide, 1 in 6 people will be over 60 years old in the next decade, and more than 6 million Australians will be over 65, with the risk of type 2 diabetes only increasing with age. So far, all the studies have been done on mice. Scientists will move to human trials in the coming years to confirm whether the process will work in the same way. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
As Year 12s received their final VCE results today, another very special cohort was graduating. 64 Golden Retrievers and Labradors have finished 18 months of training to become guide dogs and therapy animals.
It's quite an intensive program that people go through to be matched with their dog and trained with their dog. But of course, that dog will be with them for many, many years to help them live independently.
It costs $50,000 to breed and train each guide dog. Time for sport now with Blake Johnson and Blake. The Aussies are digging in on the opening day of the second test.
Without their skipper too, Mike, who's been caught up in COVID chaos. Details next. As David Warner and Marnus Labuschagne face some fierce short balls from England's pace attack, the Magpies close in on announcing their new president. Consolation for Lewis Hamilton while Max Verstappen continues his championship party, and Josh Giddey on the wrong side of NBA history. Welcome back. Steve Smith is leading Australia for the first time since Sandpaper Gate after skipper Pat Cummins was forced into COVID isolation. The recalled Stuart Broad got England off to a dream start in the second Ashes test, but the Aussies are fighting back with Dave Warner and Marnus Labuschagne digging in heading into the evening.
3 years on, Smith wasn't daunted by extra burden. He nailed his first captaincy call.
Australia win the toss.
Offered a well-grassed Adelaide strip, Cummins sent a message.
Just good luck. Go for it. It's your team this week.
Part of that 11, Michael Neser handed baggy green 4-6-2. His teammates thrilled.
He's worked his backside off for a long time, been 12th man numerous times.
Stuart Broad finally earned his 150th cap. This Adelaide test oozes tradition. Nugget Reese leads the Aussies out, while this will become a fixture, honouring revered administrator Keith Bradshaw. The most dramatic of build-ups, Broad reminded Warner of recent dominance and tried to rub it in with his first ball. It launched a spate of frenzied appeals and wasted reviews. No third umpire needed for this, though.
And picked up by Butler. Oh, a magnificent catch.
Harris gone for 3, 1 for 4. The famous old scoreboard ticked over slowly. The Aussies mostly restrained.
Warner jumps all over that.
Newly minted world number 2 test batter Marnus Labuschagne taunted Stokes. Clearly the great all-rounder wasn't amused. 1 for 45 at lunch. But it was looking ominous. The last time these two combined in Adelaide, they piled on 361.
And he is starting to look dangerous.
Marnus was living dangerously. He was on 21 when Butler suddenly went from hero to villain. England's Ashes frustration mounting. Pat Welch, 7 News.
Glenn Maxwell heroics were not enough to get the Stars across the line in a Big Bash thriller at the MCG against the Sixers. Coming in at 2 for 6, the Big Show blasted 103 off 57 balls for his maiden BBL century, propelling the Stars to 177.
There it is. Take a bow, Glenn Maxwell. First 100 in BBL, big one at the MCG. That is simply outstanding.
But his stunning ton was all in vain as Sydney opener Josh Philippe was just as destructive, an unbeaten 99, getting the Sixers home with 2 balls to spare. The Stars still hold third place on the ladder. The tumultuous year in Collingwood's boardroom battle comes to a head tonight. The Magpies are currently holding their annual general meeting, where businessman Jeff Brown is expected to replace Mark Corder as president.
We have more than 75 people have joined the meeting, so we have an official quorum.
Brown will have to be appointed on the board first before those directors will then vote on the new president. And the Bombers have declared their bold ambition to break their premiership drought in the next 5 years. Despite having not won a final since 2014, CEO Xavier Campbell delivered his hopes at their annual general meeting.
Our target by the end of this period, by 2026, is that every team has won at least one premiership.
Dyson Heppel.
At least one premiership.
Dyson Heppel will once again captain the side next year. Melbourne City captain Scott Jamieson wants to bring back the spice to the local derby. Victory copped 2 heavy defeats to City last season, but with both teams in the top 4, the skipper believes it's a whole new ballgame.
Maybe over the last few years it's dropped off a bit for whatever reason, but there's no excuse now with Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory looking like strong teams.
City can overtake Victory on the ladder with a win on Saturday night at Amy Park. US Open champion Jeff Ogilvy has used the pandemic to launch a new golf tournament here in Melbourne, the Sandbelt Invitational. Men and women pros will mix with juniors, playing over 4 different courses.
When the tournaments were dropping like flies and we didn't really have anywhere to play this year, we really wanted somewhere for the young kids to play and some of the battling pros who really haven't had anything to do for 2 years because of the pandemic. We called a few courses and everyone seemed to be pretty excited.
It tees off Monday. $150,000 are up for grabs. Lewis Hamilton has received some sort of consolation for losing the Formula One championship. He's been knighted by Prince Charles at a ceremony at Windsor Castle. It comes just days after he missed out on securing a record 8th title in a controversial finish to the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It was orange flares and a guard of honour for newly crowned champ Max Verstappen, given a hero's welcome at the Red Bull team's factory north of London. And this will have to go down as one of the most wild days in the NBA. Have a look. Josh Giddey's Oklahoma City Thunder levelled scores against New Orleans with just 1.4 seconds on the clock. But that was still enough time for this Hail Mary.
Devontae sends it, gets it, the game winner.
Oh, wow!
Devontae Graham stuns him in Oklahoma City.
Just how you drew it up.
The miraculous shot from more than 18 metres away is the longest game-winning buzzer beater in the past 25 years. I can barely see that far, let alone throw a basketball.
Talk about downtown. That was from another postcode.
That's incredible.
Thanks, Blake. Sonia Marinelli is next with the forecast. And Sonia, things are starting to heat up.
Mike, finally perfect beach weather is with us tomorrow, then turning windy and unsettled over the weekend. I'll have the details next. Good evening. As promised, stubborn cloud broke up to a stunning afternoon. It was pretty as a picture in Port Melbourne at lunchtime, while under clear skies it appears Santa got himself into a spot of bother up on the Murray near Echuca. Here we are under a cool breeze and that kept a lid on the temperature from a low of 12.8. The city reached 19.6 degrees. Light showers and patchy drizzle in the eastern suburbs cleared to a fine afternoon. Most spots around town reaching between 19 and 23 degrees. And we can look forward to an even warmer day tomorrow. The weather certainly wasn't as active today, that extensive cloud breaking up, although it was a cooler one statewide in this southerly airflow. A high is passing to our south. As it moves, it will shift the winds around to a northerly tomorrow, and that will drag heat from northern Australia down into northern Victoria. But there are 2 systems lining up to move through over the weekend. The first will bring a gusty cold change on Saturday afternoon. The second arriving on Sunday. There'll be widespread showers and expect the winds to strengthen. But then it's smooth sailing as we count down to Christmas. A high pressure system will bring clear, settled and dry and sunny conditions, so a few nice days. And if that high stays in place towards the end of the week, it should deliver a warm and dry Christmas. To the forecast now, and starting with a look around the nation. A shower or 2 in Brisbane, partly cloudy in Sydney, mostly sunny skies over Canberra, while it's hot and sunny in Adelaide for day 2 of the second test. Back home, there'll be patchy morning fog to start with in the south and east, and then a warm sunny day across the board, except in the northwest where it will be hot. heading for 37 in Mildura. Closer in and get ready for a spectacular Friday around Melbourne. Warm and sunny as some spots head into the low 30s. It should reach 30 in Geelong. Perfect weather to spend the day at the beach. In the city, we're heading for a top of 31 degrees. But on Saturday, the weather takes a turn. Hot and gusty in the morning with a top of 31 before a cool, stormy change arrives. Then on Sunday, 25 with widespread showers and increasing winds. We could get up to 15 millimetres in the city. Mostly sunny on Monday, 26. A mix of sun and cloud after that. The city will head for 23 on Tuesday, 24 on Wednesday and 22 on Thursday. And that's a pretty good lead up to Christmas, if you ask me, Mike.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Sonia. Now, here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow. And that's 7 News for this Thursday. Stay with us now as we return to the Ashes cricket at the Adelaide Oval. Have a great night.